And we are live for episode 55 of the Panen Kavyu podcast. This is a review of the match day 29 of the Bundesliga, and I have a very special guest from me who has been wanting, or maybe I was approaching him to join since the last season, and we wanted to do an episode. He's finally here. Supradip Goshal from FIIOB, a die-hard Bayern Munich fan. Thank you, Supradeep, for joining us on such a short notice. And what a week for Bayern. Every week since Hansi Flick took over has been wonderful. But we are particularly going to be talking about that 5-0 thrashing of Fortuna Dusseldorf. What did you make of the game?
So, first of all, thank you for inviting me to your show. It's a great pleasure to be out here discussing football with you. Discussing football is always fun. So, the 5-0 result versus Dusseldorf is again uh, a testimony to the massive changes Hansi Flick has brought in within the team. It's one you can see that the team is much more tactically sound. Like we could play with three left-footed defenders in the central defense in the first half. Like Lucas Hernandez had to be subbed off due to a adductor issue. So, but then when it was like a three at the three left-footed defenders, then it was like Pavard was staying a bit back alongside Kimmich while Alfonso Davis was moving upwards as much as he wanted because having many left-footed center defenders in the back at the same point of time is a bit like of an imbalance. But Flick again managed it brilliantly. Again, when Hernandez was subbed off, then Kimmich moved into the central defense, and again it was
Hmm.
like a left back pairing and the right back pairing. So it was you can see then as you see that everything is very it's like the players are having very clear instructions on what to be done on the field. Like everyone knows where to find the next person, and there's this immense coordination and understanding between themselves on the pitch, which is resulting in the outputs. Like for example, in Thiago's absence, Goretzka is playing as a defensive midfielder, kind of a destroyer role, and is actually doing pretty well. So, Flick has been good in identifying these potentials in the players week in, week out, and then trying to implement them on the field, which has overall led to a very good time for us Bayern fans.
Mm. Definitely. I think good analysis of that game there. 5-0 dominant, and to be very honest, inching very closer to an eighth consecutive Bundesliga title. 7 points clear at the top. So here are a few players that I would like to have your view on. One of them being your back, Alfonso Davis. Maybe I saw a few tweets under Kovac. People were questioning the signing and the amount of money that was spent. But he's now one of the hottest properties in the world, if not the hottest properties. And what would you like to say about Alfonso Davis?
So Alfonso Davies is a revelation. The youngster is having full of energy and he's very willing to learn and improve with each passing game. Like he knows that the pace in his game is his biggest strength. Like you can see whenever the opposition in the right flanks were chasing, and then Alfonso Davis just comes out of nowhere and the opponent is not having the ball anymore. So we have seen many such instances. But this is the thing is he's a left winger by nature when he's being transitioned into a left back. So even he has some deficiencies in his game, especially gets caught out of position a couple of times, but then he gets saved due to the pace and physicality that he has. But it's important that he, as a youngster, as a 19-year-old, is not getting carried away by all the praises. Like
Hmm.
in a recent interview, he told that he has to work on his positioning and stuff. So, which means that he identifies himself with the problems and he's willing to work on them. So this only makes us hopeful for even a better and brighter future for him.
Oh yeah. Another player that has turned his Bayern career around, or you can say he's always been there, but sometimes praised too much, sometimes criticized too much. Is Thomas Muller, and he's top of the assist charts. Did you imagine that 6 months back? And what do you make of him as a player now?
So Thomas Muller is again like it's a very joyous thing for us Bayern fans because he's a youth product and he's been with the club for so many years. So now thing is like yes, 6 months back no one would have even imagined Thomas Muller to be producing these numbers. It's all down to like Hansi Flick's interpretation of the game and how he utilizes the players on the pitch. Now the advantage which has played totally in to Muller's hands is like Hansi has been knowing Muller since their tenure in the German national team, so they already have a pretty good understanding
Hmm.
beforehand. So, and when Hansi was here, he knew the strengths which Thomas Muller had, which could be exploited, and he's doing that in full potential week in week out.
So a Bayern side that is marching on its way to an eighth consecutive Bundesliga title, and keep the smiles coming. But we've got to review another match, and we've got some talking points from the second place side Borussia Dortmund, who succumbed to a 1-0 loss to Bayern, but put six past Paderborn. Jadon Sancho with a hat trick. Let's talk about BVB, and let's talk about Sancho, Supradeep, if you saw that
Okay.
game.
Yeah. So basically, Lucien Favre's tendency is always to like overload the midfield and try to gain numerical superiority in the midfield. And right now at Borussia Dortmund, he's trying to do the same. So as if you have watched the Der Klassiker, you would have noticed that the match was a very close contest. It was a like very disciplined performance from Bayern in general, and a very one-off chance from Joshua Kimmich, which actually settled the scores. But other than that, like you cannot like you if both teams going away with a point apiece at the end of the match would not have been a bad result. So thing is like uh, Dortmund are like I find their passing a bit too passive at times. They can do it a bit more quicker, and Lucien Favre needs to like hold on to the second place in order to,
Hmm.
I believe, because his there are rumors about him being replaced next summer. So I think so. A second place finish in the table is a must for him.
Hmm.
And Jadon Sancho is obviously my favorite prospect in the Bundesliga. He's brilliant with the ball. He's calm. He's composed, and his intelligence when he's taking on opponents is actually something worth noting. Like as a 19-20-year-old winger, it's not easy to hold such composure week in week out, and he's absolutely a very brilliant player to watch, and uh, I always love to watch him play on the field.
Oh yeah, 15 goals and 15 assists, 15 plus goals and 15 plus assists. Now that's a record, and he's just 20, and he's being highly linked to the Premier League, Supradeep. But before we get into that round transfer segment, let's quickly round up the other results of the top four. Leverkusen, courtesy Kai Havertz, winning away at Freiburg, and you had Mönchengladbach beating Union Berlin 4-1, and you had RB Leipzig winning 4-2 away at Mainz. Now, next question comes regarding the top four. Now, you had RB Leipzig and Mönchengladbach, who were once challenging for the Bundesliga title, and you had Dortmund in fourth place. Now, what order do you think will be the top four? I mean, Bayern for the title, but it's 2, 3, 4, and so on. 2, 3, 4. What is your prediction?
Mm, my prediction will be the two will be Dortmund, three should be Leipzig, and fourth I guess it will be Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Oh, so that's an interesting prediction. And we head to the transfer part now. And a lot of Bundesliga stars linked away from the league, and one guy linked to Bayern. Let's get to that guy first, and that's Leroy Sané. How excited are you with that rumor or that news? And where do you see him fit in this system when you already have Serge Gnabry and Kingsley Coman?
Okay, so Leroy Sané, the transfer saga has been going on for over a year now, but hopefully we can hope that it will come to a conclusion soon. Like all most reliable outfits are telling that the player has agreed to conditions with the club. We need to agree on a transfer fee with Manchester City to put a seal on the deal. So Sane will be able to offer like Kingsley Coman. What has happened is like due to recurring injuries, his confidence has taken a hit. So like even though he's massively talented, when in form, he can be one of the best wingers in the world, undoubtedly. But like repeated injuries has like hindered his progress, and that's very unfortunate on his part. So one of the major drawbacks in Coman's game is like I find this is decision making. So I find Sane should be a better fit, especially because I've seen him and Gnabry pair up for Germany, and they work in excellent coordination. So and I guess with the likes of Thomas Muller and Robert Lewandowski up front, it should be a very good front for next season. Should Leroy Sané be a Bayern Munich player next in the upcoming months? The thing is Sane is also more versatile. He's better in scoring and assisting, and also can score free kicks. So he's obviously an upgrade from Kingsley Coman. That's my opinion.
So going for the nine then, going for nine in a row. But good overall analysis, Supradeep, and good debut on the podcast. Hope to have you regularly. But before we go anywhere, I mean, two crucial game weeks coming up for the Bavarian Giants, and very first is this Saturday when they go travel away to Leverkusen, and then they host Borussia Mönchengladbach. So, do you think these two games are the title decider? I mean, you win them and you're done with the league.
Yes, these two games obviously are very crucial, especially because Hansi Flick has lost to only two clubs, and these are the two clubs which he'll be facing in succession. Next is like obviously we are currently the point which we are lead which we're having. So if we lose these two games, that will be like we have a 6 point cut short, and if Dortmund can capitalize in the same period, then obviously it will be a very close race till the last match day.
So, one question before we end this episode, I mean, and we've thoroughly reviewed the match day 29. Under Hansi Flick and under Nico Kovac at this point of time, if you had Nico Kovac, would you be worried? I mean, I ask many of the Bayern fans, would you be worried if Nico Kovac was in charge? And what assurity does Hansi Flick bring as a coach to this side?
Okay. Uh, Yes, if Niko Kovac was in charge, I would be definitely worried because in Kovac, I did not find that element of creativity and the ability to utilize the team to its best potential. He, I don't know, what are the reasons for the drawbacks, but Hansi Flick at the same point of time, he's a very excellent communicator. Lewandowski yesterday only pointed out, like even if it's a harsh decision, it's very open and clear about it, and that is something which is really good because then once everyone knows what lies ahead for him, then everyone can be on the same page and work towards the common goal. Next is like under Kovac, I used to find that players were kind of clueless many a times. on what to do with the ball. Now the players are having very clear like instructions. The positionings are much more better. And then like Niko Kovac, unlike Kovac, Hansi Flick is not afraid to give youngsters a chance as and when required. So overall, it's a with Hansi in charge, the team is in definitely much better shape than it was ever under Niko Kovac's hand. So that's it. That's what I have to say.
Oh yeah. So that's one thing to say, and I've seen this concern everywhere, but fear no more. I mean, the eighth title is on the way. I feel a 7 point lead at the top with less than 6 games to go. I mean, this is you're in the driver's seat. So before we go anywhere, I think it's been a fantastic episode, and I always learn from my guests. But let's give our viewers, the match day, the top five schedule. I mean, everything is set for Saturday this time with an early game. Mönchengladbach traveling away to Freiburg. It's a Friday night game in Germany, 12 midnight in India. And then you have the big one from the weekend, Bayer Leverkusen versus Bayern Munich at 7 p.m. And you have Leipzig versus Paderborn and a late kickoff between Dortmund and Hertha Berlin. So, Supradeep, thank you for so much for taking your time. I mean, the connection sometimes is an issue. The technical part sometimes is an issue, but it was a treat listening to you. And thank you so much for joining. I wish to have you on the next and next and next and next every episode of the Bundesliga roundup that we do, because I would really love to incorporate German football on a regular basis on the podcast as demanded by the listeners. Anything that you would like to say before we end this podcast episode?
I guess definitely. Like it was a big pleasure to be on this show. Like it's my first ever podcast, so it has been a very good experience. So thank you, Prasad, for inviting me over to your show and giving me an opportunity to share my views. So I hope the viewers enjoy it, and loving. I would really love to be back on this show for many more episodes in the future.
So before we go, another news: if you are watching German Bundesliga fans from FIOB and around the world, if you want to come on the podcast, do message us at the panenkavyu@gmail.com, and you can always reach out to us on YouTube, and you can always reach out to us on Twitter. The links will be in the description below. So for now, here's your host Prasad signing out with guest Supradeep on this episode of the Panenkavyu podcast.